So what's going on guys, Kids here, and welcome back to a brand new video. For today I will show you the best Sharen build in the first Descendant. So in this build guide I will show you what weapons and modules you want to get. Then I will explain every single skill and show you the best reactor stats and external components. And then lastly we will take a closer look at the gameplay and weapon mods, so you would be able to get the best results and highest damage possible and much more. If this sounds interesting to you, then let's get right into it. So then let's move over to the build. Sharen is an assassin character who uses her camouflage skills to move invisibly across the battlefield and deliver devastating burst damage from stealth. Her invisibility grants her high mobility and protection from the targeted enemy attacks. Additionally, she can debuff enemies with a stun and inflict the electrocution. Our gameplay will revolve around cycling between active camouflage or invisibility, then triggering the ambush state from stealth, and then using another skill to reset the camouflage cooldown. Basic attacks are also crucial, with the first one dealing electric damage over time and the other one inflicting a stun on enemies. And because of our specific setup, we will increase all of her damage by 200%, on top of the already big damage stacks that we get from our other skills. So then with that said, now let's take a look at our build modules. And like per usual, I will show you two setups. So the first build will be for leveling, so from 1 to 30, and then the second one will be the endgame build, which is from level 30 and beyond. So first of all, for the leveling build, I recommend to use the skill expansion, which increases her skill range. Then skill extension, that increases the skill duration. Then electric specialist, that improves the electric skill power boost ratio. Then nimble fingers, that reduces your skill cooldown. Then increase shield, which improves your max shield. Then dual claw, that increases your module capacity. Then strong mentality, that reduces your resource cost when using a skill. Then energy collection, that allows you to leech mana. Then non-attribute master, that increases the skill power modifier and skill non-attribute power modifier. Then skill range mastery, that increases the skill critical hit damage and skill effect range. And finally the HP concentration, which improves your max HP and skill critical hit rate. And then now let's move over to the endgame build. So I recommend to get the battlesuit melting rounds, mid-air maneuvering, skill insight, focus on fusion, MP collector, energy collection, emergency measures, skill concentration, and the MP conversion. Then next up, let's take a look at the best weapons and mods that we should use. So for our weapon loadout, the first one is the Thunder Cage submachine gun, that emits an electric shockwave and grants us a bonus to damage after a kill. This complements the Sharen's weaknesses, which is AoV damage, allowing her for AoV damage potential coming out of stealth. And then for the weapon mods, we want to get the Hawkeye, that improves your accuracy. Then reload concentration, which makes your reloading quicker, and firearm critical damage is improved as well. Then rifling reinforcement, that significantly improves your firearm attack. Then concentrate support ammo, so now you get more rounds per magazine, and slightly more firearm critical hit damage. Then electric conductor, that improves your firearm attack when attacking electrocuted enemies. Then action and reaction, which improves your attack and recoil. Then marksman, that improves your firearm critical hit rate and slightly improves the attack. Then weak point control, that improves your weak point damage and recoil. Then weak point sight, which greatly improves the weak point damage. And finally the fire rate up, which significantly improves your fire rate. Then for the second weapon, we want to use the Enduring Legacy machine gun, that on hitting an enemy, increases your status effect trigger rate, corresponding to your element, and inflicting the unique ability called the Cleansing to the targeted enemy. On hitting a burned enemy, it also increases your firearm ADK and applies this buff to the attack. This weapon deals great damage against smaller foes, so to clear out trash enemies, this is the one for you. And for the weapon mods, we want to get the rifling reinforcement, that improves your firearm ADK. Then fire enhancement, that adds fire ADK equal to a portion of the firearm ADK. Then action and reaction, which improves your ADK and increase recoil. Then weak point insight, that increases your weak point damage and slightly increases the critical rate. Then weak point sight, that increases your weak point damage. And finally the fire rate up, that increases your fire rate. And finally, for our third weapon of choice, we want to get the Disastrous Devotion, which is a great secondary weapon for the Sharen build. It works especially well if you're good at aiming and are confident at hitting enemy weak points. Hitting an enemy's weak point will reduce their defense by 30% for 3 seconds, indirectly buffing the damage of all of your attacks. And lastly, for our weapon mods, we want to get the Rifling Reinforcement, which increases ATK, then Better Insight for increased critical rate, then Better Concentration for increased critical damage, then Vibration Absorption that reduces recoil, then Fire Rate Up, which increases the fire rate, then Hawkeye that improves your accuracy, and finally the Expand Impact Magazine that improves your magazine size. Then next up, let's go over to the best reactor and external components. So your reactor is very important item that determines your skill damage and can also include extra modifiers that buff certain aspects of your build. The better your reactor is, the more damage your skills will deal to enemies. I recommend prioritizing using a reactor with a high skill power and a sub-attack power. Specifically, my best job that I got is this Tingling Mixture reactor with the hand cannon optimization condition. But then as for your external components, they're even more of an RNG, at least until you've played the game for long enough to find basically every single possible combination with a good stat roll. For our build specifically, I recommend to get the components with max shields, max HP, HP recovery and defenses, as our build needs all of these stats, so you can stack all of them together, or just use whatever best job you got. And finally, let's take a look at our skills. The first passive skill is called the Assassinator, which increases our damage when we attack the enemy that is not attacking our character. Killing enemies with a skill in the ambush state resets cooldown for the active camouflage. Then our first active skill is the Cut-Off Beam, that attacks the enemy with the electric blade to deal damage and inflict them with the electrocute effect. Then the second one is the active camouflage, that gives us the ability to hide from the enemies. When attacking or using skills, active camouflage state ends immediately, regardless of the time remaining. When active camouflage state ends, Sharen enters an ambush mode, which increases the damage of the next attack. Then next up we have the Impact Rounds, that launches a built-in explosives forwards from the arm to stun the enemies. And finally we have the Flash Short Sword, which targets enemies within aiming range, and throws multiple knives to attack them. Knives will then explode to inflict enemies with damage and the electrocute effect. And last but not the least, let's quickly go over a few tips and tricks. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, Sharen's gameplay will revolve around cycling between active camouflage for invisibility, then triggering ambush state from stealth, and then using another skill to reset the camouflage cooldown. Basic attacks are also crucial, with the first dealing electric damage over time, and then the other one inflicting a stun on enemies. Sharen excels at single target burst damage. Her only AoE damage comes from her ultimate ability, which isn't triggered frequently, so you have to prioritize dealing damage from stealth and maximize her electric damage. Sharen is highly mobile and can move easily around the battlefield, thanks to her invisibility. While she lacks speed boosting abilities, this isn't necessary since her stealth will prevent enemies from targeting her. Her burst damage is very effective against bosses, however, her ultimate ability, the Flash Short Sword, which combines AoE and damage over time, should be used sparingly because of its longer cooldown. And finally, as for defensive play, Sharen's survivability relies on her ability to go invisible, so we will want to use active camouflage to deal damage from stealth and to escape tricky situations when needed. Her stealth allows her to reposition and avoid damage, making this a high risk, high reward type of playstyle. And that's about it. So with that said, I really do appreciate everyone for watching guys, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or suggestions, then feel free to leave your comments in the comment section down below. And while you're doing that, please click like, subscribe and enable that notification bell, so this way you could support the channel and not miss any more amazing content. With that said, you have an amazing day and I will see you in the next one, so take it easy, peace.